Once you are live, you are live.
Hello everybody, it's lovely to have you with us here again on a sunrise, we hope sometime soon, safari in the middle of the Kruger National Park. My name is James Hendry and I'm going to be talking to you from my little tent today. Why, you might ask? Well, we can't go on a bushwalk. Our security detail, Herbert, is a little bit under the weather and we think probably having been savaged by ticks like many of us have, he's going to take the morning off to recover. So I will be in the tent here with Batman on camera. Out in the field, Tristan will shortly be going out with Jean-Dre, and Jamie Patterson went out some time ago, and she is being filmed by Willem Dorenbraak. So that is the team for the day. On the wildlife front, I will tell you the two interesting things that have happened so far. I found a mottled shovel-nosed frog. That is inaccurate. Craig found a mottled shovel-nosed frog outside, and we brought it in to show it to you, but unfortunately it escaped and has gone off into the dusk, at least into the dawn, which I suppose is fair enough. Also, we heard a leopard calling, probably the other side of quarantine clearings. Who that is, I don't know. I suspect quite strongly it's Tingana on a patrol. So maybe we'll find him at some stage during the drive. Hashtag Safari Live is how you get hold of us on Twitter, or questions at WildEarthTV if you would rather email us. As I said yesterday during our television spectacular, I said we found a carrier pigeon the other day that had been killed by a peregrine falcon. We think its rotting left leg was attached of a little question about Karula and her cubs. Don't send carrier pigeons. Hashtag Safari Live or questions at WildEarth.tv. Right, we're going to try and find some things in here to show you under the microscope, possibly not even under the microscope, but Tristan would like to bid you a fond and very dark good morning.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our sunrise safari. My name is Tristan, and on camera this morning I've got Jean-Dre, and we are busy having a little look around for any sign of this leopard that James heard calling from the tent. So far I haven't picked up anything. There's very little going on quarantine this morning, so it is quite quiet out here, which could potentially mean that Karula or maybe Tingana also could be around and are creeping around. So we're just doing a little loop around here, just having a look for any signs of either of them. Like I say, so far I haven't seen anything. I didn't hear the leopard calling myself. We were switched off in the camp, but I didn't hear anything. But James does have a solid set of ears, so we will have a little scratch around and see. It is an absolutely beautiful, beautiful morning this morning. We've got a little bit of cloud cover that's just starting to break up a little bit, and it's a very pleasant temperature, so it promises to be a really good morning out here. It's perfect weather for a safari, that's for sure. So it is still quite dark, so we're a little bit limited to just the spotlight. So if it's out of the spotlight, we're not going to see too much just yet. But if that leopard is calling, hopefully it will call again. So what we'll do is we're just going to do a loop around, and if there's no sign of anything, then we'll probably head back to quarantine and just turn off for a little bit and have a listen out. Maybe we'll then get lucky and be able to hear that leopard calling and be able to then find it through its call. Alright guys, so while we're looking for this leopard and seeing if we can find any signs of it, we're going to go to Jamie so she can say good morning to all of you.
And a very good morning to all of you, and welcome on our sunrise safari. For those of you that are new to our live safaris, my name is Jamie. There's a scrub here, sorry, it's about to run into the road. don't do that. Let me just take all my lights off because otherwise they get a bit panicked. Yes, my name is Jamie. This morning VM is on camera with me, and VM, we're going to find the leopard before Tristan, aren't we? Yes, that is the plan. Now don't forget to send through all of your questions using hashtag Safari Live on Twitter or email through to questions@WildEarth.tv. So there's a leopard calling on quarantine clearings. Tristan's on one side of the road, I'm on the other. Wait, let me try and rephrase that. There is a large river system, creek system, dried up river system on the one side of quarantine. Tristan's on one side of that and I am on the other. And I'm hoping that it's going to turn out to be Tingana. But before we do that, bronze-winged courser in the road. There we go, I can add that to my bird list as part of this birding challenge that I am involved in. Good morning. One of my absolute favorites. Tuk, tuk, tuk. They're so lovely. Well, there we go. VM ticked off our first bird of the morning. A bronze-winged courser. It's a good opportunity to just sit and listen. If it is a Tingana calling, he might be due any second for another harsh sawing sound. I wonder who it is. It sort of determines which way we should be looking, kind of. Not that leopards are ever that predictable. But Tingana, often when he comes through quarantine, he moves through Djuma and then he goes west or north. But those are sort of the two paths that he walks, if it is him. Don't know if it's a female or a male that was calling. I was not far from that braai site about 2 seconds ago. And that would also explain why there was nothing on quarantine, VM. If we drove past the leopard again. The second time this week since I've been back to work. There's been a leopard on quarantine that we've missed. Slacking. Okay, the bush braai site we've gone past now. Just check very carefully for tracks. No, nothing coming out there that I can see. It's the problem with this time in the morning, and of course, good time to remind you all that tomorrow our sunrise safari will shift half an hour later. And this is why, because it is very, very dark at this time in the morning. Laura B wants us to find her pearl-spotted owl while it's still dark. I heard one calling. Not... Was that one? No, that's just a kingfisher. No, it's just a kingfisher calling. I did hear one calling on quarantine this morning. Look who's hiding over there. A giant land snail. And Tristan said we weren't going to see all that much. Accompanied to the gentle thud of marula fruit falling down on the ground. So there we go, a giant land snail as well. And we're seeing plenty. Now we've just got to find Laura B's pearl-spotted owl. You know what, I thought I just found one. It's not. It's a lilac-breasted roller in the tree. I was going to say that was an extraordinary feat of luck, but it is just a lilac-breasted roller. Okay, sorry, roller. I know, it's a bit early for the... Oh, what have you two been up to? Suspicious. Two of them come bouncing out of the bush. Scrub hares. You see, there's plenty to see out here. We'll just pretend that didn't happen. Rusty does this sometimes. There's no reason to panic. Here we go. Your car does it too. What? Oh, really? Not too concerned about it. Okay, fair enough. The land snail's fine, by the way. I just put it in the middle of our wheels. Vim says his car does it too, but that's okay because we can push start it if he has to. Valid point. And why is it Rusty always... Why is it that Rusty always misbehaves whenever I get into her? This is why Brent drives Rusty and I drive Wendy. It's actually to do with the fact that Brent says Rusty's a little bit bigger. I'm not convinced. I don't think... Pardon? It is a bit skewer as well. Oh, Lisa, my apologies. my apologies. I cannot tell you the number of times I have been warned about using terms like quarantine clearings without explaining them a little bit. And Lisa wants to know, what is this quarantine that we talk of? Is it actually quarantined off? Is it man-made? What is it? Lisa, it did used to be... Oh, excuse me. Apparently I can't breathe and talk at the same time. It did used to be a screened off area back in the time when this area was utilized as farmland. So it was used as quarantine for cattle, because of course cattle in this area, there's a lot of communicable diseases between buffalo and various antelope species, and then cows. The big ones, TB. There's certain other diseases as well, foot and mouth, for example. So it used to be used as a quarantine area. It is now just an open area, totally unfenced. There's no fences anymore. There's nothing kept there anymore. It's now just the reference to the open area outside of our camps. We've got a nice, beautiful open area. We often see elephants feeding on marulas there. Karula's been around there recently. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about quarantine clearings. And that is where Quarantine the leopard gets his name from. Not because he was in quarantine, which really, actually now, in hindsight, does get a bit confusing with young Xongile, who was in quarantine. No, but Quarantine, the male leopard, not Xongile, gets his name from quarantine clearings. So there you go. That's the explanation behind this quarantine area that we keep talking about. Just elephant tracks. Tristan. Oh dear. Okay. I'm going to be contacting Tristan in a moment, trying to get a hold of him just to find out where he has checked. But speaking of Tristan, let's head over to the man himself and find out from him what his plans are from here.
Thank you, Jamie. So we are still just scratching around and checking. We've checked along a little drainage line, and now we're coming back up towards quarantine. I just want to check quickly where James had that audio around the Bushbrae site. So we're going to go just have a little scratch there quickly and see. I have a feeling that maybe this audio is coming from that drainage line. It's a little bit too dark to go walking around there, and even seeing tracks is quite difficult. I haven't seen any sign of anything, but we're just going to have a little quick look. So no sign just yet, but hopefully we will find the leopard before Jamie. I believe it's now a contest, so we're going to try our hardest. But I'm glad Jamie got a bronze-wing corsair. That is a beautiful, beautiful bird, and not that commonly seen because unfortunately they're a lot more nocturnal, so typically only rarely see them in the late evenings when they're sitting on the roads. So that's a really, really nice find. So the Bushbrae is just off to our left here. So I wonder if maybe it's not coming from somewhere in this area. So the Bushbrae area is an area that Djuma Game Reserve, the camp that is close by, they will use it sometimes for their guests. They make a big fire and they do a big barbecue, and that's just to have a bit of a nice sort of time outside of the camp. They do it in the evenings, and it really is very, very beautiful to have one of these fires out in the bush under the stars. You have a good meal. It's generally quite festive. Lots of people, well, the whole camp is together normally. The rangers normally come in and sit with the camp, and so lots of storytelling that goes on. I suppose it'd be very similar to the fireside chats that we do sometimes, except that they put a bit of food on the fire and cook and have a bit more of a proper sit-down meal. So I still don't see any tracks on the road. Like I say, it's all quite quiet at this stage. I don't know if James possibly has heard that leopard call again. We'll have to get hold of him just now and just see what he has to say. So James says he hasn't heard it again, which is fine. At least we've got James in the tent. He can be our kind of detection system, so if he does hear it again, he can give us a heads up and let us know if whereabouts that sound is coming from. You know, around these sunrise times, often you find that they'll call and then it'll go quiet for a while, and then you'll hear a call again a few minutes later, sometimes 20-30 minutes. So just have a look around in the meantime. So talking of our early detection system in his tent, we're going to go back to James and see what he's managed to find.
I found this thing. It is a red driver ant male. It doesn't look like an ant, it looks like a wasp or something like that. But that is unsurprising because, of course, it belongs to the order Hymenoptera. And they are, of course, the wasps and the bees and the ants. And this is a red driver ant male. The female looks nothing like this. She's small and sort of antish and not very wasp-like. Now, these guys come in great droves. I'm going to do some research on them while we're in the tent today. They come in great droves. They're attracted to the light. And although they look pretty terrifying, if you look at their mouth parts, you might be convinced that, well, something like this could probably take your life. They're completely harmless. They don't seem to bite people at all. They just look a little bit off, I feel. And I found this one inside my tadpole pond. All the tadpoles were looking a bit disconcerted, so I had to remove him and, well, about 25 of his closest friends from the tadpole pond this morning. So that is the red driver ant. I'm going to put him over here, and we're going to do some research on him during the course of the morning. But what I wanted to show you this time round, that was just a sort of precursor, a preface, a small taster. This is the click beetle. Now, this click beetle, unfortunately, has died slowly over the last few days or so. We tried to keep it going, feed it, and leave it outside, but I think it had already finished its life cycle. And what I want to show you under the microscope is how it clicks, but not this particular one, because I have another one, smaller one under the microscope with more obvious clicking parts. So have a look here. There it is. Now you can see that spiky bit there on the sort of bottom side, that's the head. You see that spiky bit? I'll focus in on it now. That spiky bit gets pushed underneath the sort of flat surface there that you can see the other side of that gap. Do you know what I mean? To the left-hand side of the spiky bit. It gets pushed under there, the spike does, and then pulled up, and the very hard chitinous exoskeleton makes a click as it's pulled up. So if we come back to this particular beetle, there is the hard spike. There. You can see it there. Oh, there we go. There you are. Now what it does, I'll try and demonstrate it, is it puts it underneath, it shifts its head back, pushes it underneath there and clicks it up. Click. Hear that? No, you probably didn't. There, it pushes it underneath like that and clicks it up. And what that does is that it flicks the beetle up off its back. If it's on its back like this, it will click, it'll go whoop, up into the air and fall down, hopefully, back on its front. And that's how it ends up. It also does that, of course, to try and escape from predators, and I think it's probably quite successful. Now, I haven't seen a lot of click beetles before in my life. It's probably because I haven't been enormously observant to them. But we found 3 or 4 species. This is by far the biggest one that we have. And I'm not exactly sure which click beetle species it is, but that's the biggest one we get. And the one under the microscope is about, about a tenth of this size. So they come in all shapes and sizes. I'm just going to quickly ask Rebecca to tell Tristan and Jamie that I can hear guinea fowl alarm calling now on the far side of quarantine clearings. There we are. Good. Now, Rob, you're wondering how we travel to the tent every morning in the darkness. Well, Rob, we have a helicopter that takes us from the DRC, where we live, to the tent here. I'm obviously talking rubbish. No, we don't need security, Rob. We have torches, and we just use them and walk very carefully in the morning. I left my torch in the tent yesterday, so I had to rely on Craig, aka Batman, to look after us as we walked here. It's not far from the camp. It is probably about a 100-meter or 300-foot walk, so it's really not very far. But it is, of course, around the camps where people often get into the most trouble, because they think, well, I'm close to the camp. What animal could possibly be here? And in fact, the closest encounter I've ever seen anyone have at Djuma was right outside this tent with a buffalo, and that was Taylor, who was chased into it by a very angry buffalo during the height of the drought. She was wandering around here looking for things in the bush. She was paying attention, thankfully, and the buffalo came out of nowhere, and she went running back into the tent, and the buffalo veered off and went away. So you can get lulled into a very, very false sense of security being so close to the camp. But thankfully, she is okay, and all is all right now. Let's go across to Jamie, get an update, and I will keep listening for those guinea fowl.
Now, James is absolutely correct, of course. One does get and even we fall into the trap, I think, every now and again, until we have a gentle or not so gentle reminder that perhaps being around the camp doesn't necessarily exclude the possibility of being squashed by something. There are very fresh hippo tracks and a very wet pile of dung sitting right outside the main camp's gate this morning. Now, just to serve as a gentle reminder that we must not ever get complacent living out here. And of course the fact that we live in their home and not the other way around. Right, James says he can hear guinea fowl alarm calling on the other side of quarantine. Fortunately, I'm on my way to the other side of quarantine, so that's good news. And Tristan and I just encountered each other, so we obviously both had a very similar idea as to where to check and which way to go. Oh, okay, stopping once for sunrise. I thought it was going to be prettier than it is. It's still pretty, though. Gives me a chance to listen as well. Very misty this morning, which automatically makes me think it's going to be boiling hot a little bit later, as soon as this mist burns off. Right, sunrise done. On towards the alarm-calling guinea fowl. There's also hyenas calling. Apparently it was Comet that we saw yesterday, so a young clan male, and then Tristan saw him again, if I'm not very much mistaken, yesterday evening. I went and checked the Philemon's cutline den, just in this vague hope that perhaps the fact that there was one hyena close to an old den site meant that they'd come back. And it looks like it's being used, but it doesn't look like it's being used by hyenas, unfortunately. Something living there, but I think it's warthog. I'm quite disappointed. I was hoping, against hope, that there would be a return of our hyenas to that old den, and they haven't used that in about a year and a half, more. So perhaps they have returned there. I'm going to try and find the hyena that's whooping here as well. Morning, snake eagle. Snake eagle or batalier? Definitely snake eagle. Doesn't have a head. Oh, there we go. It heard you. Did look as though it didn't have a head. It was very scruffy. You got bedhead this morning. You look as though you could use a little bit of cleaning, mister. It's very pretty. That could also, potentially, I suppose, be cause for alarm if you're a guinea fowl. Unlikely, though. Listening for guinea fowl calling. No. I think I hear ground hornbill somewhere, far away. So much for my plans for going straight to Cheetah Plains. Okay, now that it's a little bit lighter, things might be a little bit easier. Oh, Tristan apparently is doing well now that the sun has come up and he's put away his spotlight. He hasn't found a leopard, but he's found something else mammalian.
Indeed we have, Jamie. We've managed to find in that thicket there, which is not very easily visible at this stage, but there is an elephant. So there is a young male elephant that is busy walking along and having a little feed. There we go, coming out a little bit. Like I say, it is quite thick bush, so he's been kind of walking parallel with us. And we're hoping that he's going to start coming out a little bit. But he is on quite a serious mission this morning. He's been striding out and stops to feed at one or two branches here and there, but generally is walking quite quickly. So just want to try see if we can just get in front of him a little bit. These young Ellies sometimes can be quite feisty and can be quite active, particularly in cooler mornings like this. So just trying to see if I can find a little gap here. I'm sure we can. There we go. He's just gone stationary at that termite mound there. And you can see he's actually got some vegetation in his trunk that he's busy hitting on his chest. Alright, so what he's doing is he's getting rid of all the soil particles on those roots. So as he's grabbed that plant, bits of soil and have stuck onto the root system, and those bits are very, very abrasive on his teeth. So he hits it against his chest and gets rid of all those soil particles and can then put it inside his mouth, and he won't have to worry about those soil particles grinding the teeth too much. So very clever little elephant this. Well done, boy. Also seems as though he was using it a bit as a fly swatter. There is quite a number of insects out this morning. It's a very kind of humid start to the day, and I'm sure after the rain that we had over the weekend, quite a few insects are out, and so even the Ellies get a little bit driven mad by them. Like I was saying, he seems to be really moving quite quickly. I wonder if he's not picked up the scent of a herd, and he's busy following that. He's still a little bit young to be trying to mate with any herds or any females. I'd imagine if he tried, the bigger males would very quickly find him and sort him out. So he's going to have to be a little bit careful if he's doing that. Well, Abigail from Canada would like to know how long an elephant's tusks grow. So Abigail, it's obviously very dependent on the elephant and the area and the amount of nutrition that animal gets that will cause the tusks to grow bigger or smaller. But if my memory serves me correctly, the longest set of tusks, the world record set of tusks, was I think 2 meters, 2.4 meters, somewhere there. I'll have to check it for you and make sure, but about 2.4 meters, which in feet is almost 7 foot, so 7-8 feet around there. so very, very long. And when the tusks are very, very thick, it's absolutely incredible to see animals with tusks like that. There are some really great images on the internet where you can actually see the size of some of those tusks. So you can see this Ellie's now come out perfectly in the road in front of us. We are sitting very close to a marula tree, and as you can see that, he just popped a couple marulas in his mouth. So he's busy feeding on these marulas. There we go. So he uses that trunk with those two little fingers on the end, and is able to pick them up and then pop them into the mouth. Now the reason why he's eating those is because those little marulas are packed full of nutrition. Alright, they're very, very, very high in vitamin C, so not something that is easily found in the bush areas, and so each one of those little marulas is around 4 times more vitamin C than an orange, so it's perfect nutrition for them. So you're finding at the moment that these male elephants are pretty much going from marula to marula, picking up all these little fruit as they go. Now I wonder if he's not going to go up towards the tree and actually give it a little head bump. What they sometimes do is they actually will bump the tree to make more fruit drop. He seems to have just smelt something, kind of ears have cocked up a little bit and trunk went out. You can see lifting his head slightly, so that's the advantage of having those really big ears, is that they just push them out slightly and it acts like a big net that catches all the sound waves around them, and they're able to then hear very, very well. So I wonder if it didn't pick up the sound of something that interests it. So it could be maybe a herd of elephants, could be a predator of some sort. That's an interesting question. So Samuel from California would like to know, do elephants sleep at night? Well, lone elephants like this. Yes, they can sleep at night. A lone elephant, even though he's a young male, he's still very, very big. He's not going to be an animal that's going to be easily hunted. Most of the predators in this area are going to rather focus on slightly smaller things like buffalo, things that are a little bit less dangerous. So an elephant is really not on the menu in this area, and so even though it's at night and the predators are active, he generally can get away with being sleepy in the evenings and not getting himself into too much trouble. So yes, they do sleep at night. For the most part though, a lot of their sleeping will be actually in the day when it's very, very hot. So they use the cover of night and the coolness of night, particularly in the summer months when it's very, very hot, to be able to, to be able to get a good sort of amount of feeding done during the night. And then during the day when it's hot, they find a shady tree and then they kind of rest under that tree. So they make use of those cooler hours in the evening. But yes, he can sleep at night. Like I say, nothing would really go after them. There are in some parts of Africa, so in Botswana, there's a pride that's learned to hunt elephants. But those are generally much smaller, younger elephants. They try to target young teenage males, or even the calves. And an elephant of this size would be really a very, very, very difficult animal to bring down. So I highly doubt he would get hunted. Can never say never though. In the bush these things can happen. Sometimes lions pull off miraculous things. Well, Lawrence would like to know how much bigger this elephant will get. So Lawrence, at the moment, he's probably, I would say, about 60% of fully grown. He can still develop quite a bit, so he's going to get a lot heavier. his head is going to get much larger, and you'll find he'll get a little bit taller too. So he's probably only at about 60% grown, so if that can give you an idea of how much larger he will get. In terms of weight, I would probably estimate that this male is weighing now already about 4 tons, or close to 8,000 pounds already. And by the time he's a really adult, fully grown, mature male, he can be up to 10 to 12,000 pounds, alright, or 5 to 6 tons. So he's still going to put on quite a bit of weight. And like I say, most of that weight will be put on in the head area. Is going to get a really massive head. The trunk is going to thicken up quite a bit, and so he should get on quite a bit more size from that. I think maybe he's moving quite a lot, because as we're sitting here, there is lots of biting flies that are landing on us, and I wonder if he's not being bitten by those flies himself. So I think that's why he's moving constantly, and the ears are flapping and the trunk is going, is he's trying to just get out of this area and away from all of these flies. Sometimes what you find is with the marula fruits, there's quite a few flies that are landing on that. They get the moisture from the fruit itself, and so you end up in a situation where when the elephant comes, it disturbs all these flies and they then land all over him. So I think that's why he's on such a mission this morning. Now that he's kind of disappearing into that thicket, we're not going to follow, we're going to carry on. While I was sitting here, I have been listening out and trying to hear any signs of that leopard or any alarm calls, but so far there's nothing that I can pick up. I don't know, Jean-Andre, if you heard anything while I was talking. No, so Jean-Andre is shaking his head, he says no. But let's have a look and see. Alright, so while we carry on our search, we're going to go back to James, who has an elephant on his computer.
I'm not sure where that came from. Anyway, here we are. I don't have an elephant on my computer. I have these bones, which I wanted to re-show you, because I know many of you have seen them before, but there was a question about the size. Was it Michael, who was asking about the size of the elephants, Rebecca? Is that correct? Lauren, you were asking about, apparently. I don't know what that means. Here we have an elephant's femur. Now, the femur, of course, is the back leg. This is probably about 40 pounds worth, and it's upside down at the moment. It goes that way around, and I suspect comes from a very large bull elephant. And you can see that it has been used as a candle holder at various stages of its life. Let's take it outside, maybe. So this is the femur. Now, for those of you who are confused, or perhaps are not so fly on your anatomy, I'm not so fly in my anatomy, but this one I do know. This is the top part of the leg, so it's exactly the same as the bone that's in the top part of your leg and joins onto the pelvis, which would of course extend from there. So I'm going to leave that over there like... No, I'm not. I'm going to leave it here. And then we're going to fetch the other very large elephant leg bone that we have. Sorry, Batman, I'll be with you now. And that is a humerus from an elephant, also weighing in at about 40 pounds, 20 kilograms. Plus minus. Just hearing some oxpeckers flying around here, and rather hoping that leopard who was calling might come wandering past the tent. Anyway, the humerus, of course, is the top part of the arm. So an elephant's leg is actually quite similar in arrangement to ours, in so much as the foot contains all of the phalanges and the metacarpals. They're in the foot. There's the wrist bone, which looks in an elephant like a knee joint. It's just sort of, looks like it's about halfway up, but that's the wrist joint there. And then it's got this massive, massive humerus, and it's so thick. I mean, you can see how thick it is in comparison with my leg, because the vast majority, of course, of the elephant's mass is borne on the shoulders. And that's why this humerus is so very large. Now, this didn't come from the same elephant, but the elephant from which these two things came was very clearly a large bull, or there were two large bulls, and I think, I would have put them probably at about 6 tons each. So they would have been very large bull elephants. And we don't know how they died. We don't know how these elephants came to their end, probably to old age. They were just found out in the wilderness. And of course, the old elephant graveyard chestnut that we talk about so often is disproven by these ones, of course. And as Stefan said to me the other day, he said, yes, we do tell that story about elephants going down to the river to die, where they eat all, there's much softer material for them to eat. They die by the rivers, and then their bones kind of wash and sink into the moist sand. Yeah, that does happen. But they also just get scattered by hyenas and scattered by other scavengers. And we also tend to think of bones as being fossilized, as them obviously becoming fossils. They don't. Almost no bones become fossils, and eventually they just wither to nothing. And these ones have started to disintegrate. Now, Tristan has managed to find something that could easily be following the leopard and would indeed eat one of these bones.
Indeed, James. So we were just coming down the road and we saw a hyena crossing in front of us, heading in the direction of where that leopard was calling and where the alarm calls for those guinea fowl were coming. So I thought it would be a good idea just to try and follow this hyena for a bit and just see where it takes us. They're often a huge exponent of leopards, so they hear a leopard call or they can hear alarm calls of birds, and they then go into that area to try and see if they can find the leopard, and they then are able to try and follow that leopard around or to look for any signs that that leopard potentially has any food that it can steal. So we're just kind of going through into a little dip here and into a drainage line, which is pretty much where James said he had that audio. So trying to keep up with this hyena is not easy through this. It's just here in front of us, so let's have a look. Kind of zigzagging its way through. It keeps getting behind the trees, so just try see if we can get around. There we go. It should be coming out shortly. So you can just see it moving through there, and you can see it's got its head down. It's busy sniffing quite a bit, so it almost looks like it's on the trail of something. It could obviously be another hyena that it's smelling. There could be a multitude of different things, but it is highly mobile and moving straight towards where James had that audio. So I'm hoping that the hyena will lead us to this leopard. That would be a stroke of luck if it does, that's for sure. Got to be careful of hidden stumps. Now with the grass growing a little bit after the rains, not as easy to see some of these stumps that hide out and lurk in the bush. So but it's really nice to be seeing hyenas again. Obviously we had that one last night, which was really nice. That was a young male. This one looks like an adult female. It's been a little bit difficult to get visuals of it. It keeps going into quite dense bush, so I haven't had a very good visual of whether it's male or female, but it looks like an adult female. So I believe a lot of you are just as excited as I am about this hyena. And the fact that we've actually gotten to see it. Sorry, just got to get over a dead tree here. So while we're off-roading, I believe some of you have asked about plants, and some of these trees that we drive over are quite common trees that are actually in no way does it damage them. They generally young trees that are quite pliable and quite flexible, and so as we go over them, they generally just pop up behind us. There are certain species of trees, just careful there, Jeandre, we're going to try and fit ourselves through here. There are certain species of trees that are endangered or slow growing, that we try to avoid driving over as much as possible. Obviously we're trying not to damage the environment too much, but things like bush willows, which is the tree that we're going over now, they're very, very pliable when they're young. They're not endangered in any way, and so going over them actually doesn't harm them too much. They tend to pop up behind us as we go through. But I'm not sure if we're going to be able to follow any further. We've gone into quite a deep ravine. Right, so as we go through the thicket and see where this hyena takes us, we're going to go back to Jamie and see if she's managed to find any further signs for those leopards.
No further signs, unfortunately. I don't know where this mystery leopard has gone. I mean, the ground is still a little bit hard from the rain the other day, so we could very easily have missed the leopard tracks, but unfortunately I haven't heard anything. I've been stopping and listening as I go along. I've stopped for ages next to the Mulwati, which is where James thinks this leopard's disappeared into. Not a peep, not a sound, just very noisy hornbills next to me. I think I'm going to leave the search to Tristan and his sniffer hyena, his tracking hyena, and move off slowly in the direction of Cheetah Plains and Chitwa. Now, before we do that, speaking of leopards and leopard tracking, lots of hyena tracks. Mike, you want to know if leopards hunt at night? Yes, they do. That is, in fact, their best hunting time. It is when they're at their most effective, because, of course, they've got the blanket of darkness to help cover them. And when when darkness falls, everything becomes shades of black and grey. So their camouflage works really, really well in breaking up those spots, breaking up their outline. They see beautifully in the dark. So yes, hunting at night is what leopards do best. However, I thought I spotted an owl. I did not. Most definitely did not. However, I have also seen leopards hunt in the middle of the day at 40 degrees centigrade. So they're not always predictable creatures at all. I've seen Karula before we even started our sunset safari, kill an impala. I've seen them wandering around in the middle of the day. So they're opportunistic animals, but yes, typically hunting at night is where a leopard does its best work. Particularly cloudy, windy nights, because that's when they really have the true advantage of surprise. I was hoping, as I said the word surprise, a leopard would just pop out, but no such luck. Road's still a little bit muddy. What really surprises me, speaking of mud and the amount of rain that we've received, what confuses me immensely, not confuses, I know why it's happened, but what disappoints me is the amount of rain that we had the other day. Voyatela Dam, Djuma Dam, is basically empty. I was looking at it earlier, it's basically just mud. I still haven't had enough rain to replenish our water holes. This hippopotamus has walked all over the road, backwards and forwards, north and south, which is making tracking very difficult. And there we go, speaking on the subject of rain. Morning, Jenna. Welcome to your Safari Live addiction. It's lovely to hear your name, I think for the first time. Jenna, you want to know if it is always green in the Kruger National Park. I think many of our viewers can attest to the fact that it is absolutely not. We have typical rainfall times. So we have two seasons. We have a dry season in our winter and we have a wet season in our summer. And our dry season are usually quite dry and quite brown and quite sort of dry. I couldn't think of another word there. Quite barren, that's the word I was looking for. However, we've just come out of, we have been in a really horrible drought. Supposedly the worst in 100 years, certainly one of the worst in the decades. And the landscape up this.
Now, everybody, we have refound our mottled shovel-nosed frog. He was sitting in the corner of the tent. We are going to release him shortly, and there he is. He's rather good at jumping, so I'm just going to be a little bit careful about how I show him to you. And you can see why he's called a shovel-nosed frog there. He's got a shoveled nose. And what he does... What he does, let's let him jump out. Come on, out you go. What he does is he burrows into the ground with using his snout, and you can see why he's called mottled. It's because he's got a mottled skin. Now, you will sometimes be told that it's not a great idea to handle frogs because the oils on our skin can affect their very sensitive skins. I haven't found that to be the case with the frogs out here, and I think you'll find that, some of the oils he picked up wandering about the tent were probably potentially more damaging to his skin. I don't think he's in any danger from the oils on my skin, and I'm just going to put him outside. He's going to probably live in a little burrow, and this is where... I just love frogs, you see, and we so seldom find them anymore. He's now immediately rendered almost invisible. There we are. And soon he will disappear off and dig himself a little hole and go and live in it. Isn't he cool? This is only the second frog that I've seen this year outside the tent. The other one was what was it again? I remember now. It was one of the sand frogs. I don't remember any of them. It may well have been a bushveld rain frog as well. But that there is the mottled shovel-nosed frog. Now, Rebecca in the final control would like to know if we get bubbling casinas here. I suspect because they remind her perhaps of holidays where those frogs are the kind of only things that you can hear often around waterholes and game reserves. Yes, we do, Rebecca. We find bubbling casina here, not in great profusion, but they're around some of the pans and ponds, indeed. And Rebecca only remembers that name apparently because it sounds like casino. She's not a gambler, I don't think. Now, with marvellous news, Jamie Patterson has found, I hope, what was calling the other side of quarantine clearings.
We have indeed, although I doubt it was him calling. I would be very, very surprised indeed if he were making an adult-sounding leopard call. Oh, you just missed it, actually, because it was as we lost signal and disappeared off your screen that I came round the corner, and lo and behold, there is Hosana lying up in a pile of dung. The best, most comfortable patch for a leopard to lie on. I suppose it's a bit spongy and quite squishy, so I guess maybe it is comfy. I don't see any fresh dung in there, so maybe not as bad as it looks. And the testiculars are absolutely furious somewhere just behind him, which makes me think there's another leopard here. Maybe his sister, maybe his mum. He's hearing things as well. He's listening. You were a serious surprise, mister. I did not think you were going to have wandered all this way along here. Why did you wander all the way along here? I wonder whether last night Karula went to fetch him. Yesterday morning, this young male leopard, who is almost a year old, in 2 days, he's going to have his first birthday, he was following his mom and his sister, and he just decided he didn't want to follow them anymore, lay down and refused to go any further in true teenage style. I think he just decided the morning was a little bit too early, and he went to sleep. He's also got a sore foot. It could well be from falling out of trees. What was I? Sorry, I completely forgot what I was talking about. Oh yes, he's got a limp from potentially falling out of a tree. Might have been from scrapping with his sister. I don't think it's too serious. Now, the reason that I know that this is Hosana is I know what Hosana looks like. I don't know how else to explain it. He's got a very distinctive look. He's quite a big young leopard for a year-old cub, but still not as large as an adult leopard. He's also, underneath his tail, got the barest hint of a testicle. And of the two leopard cubs that we get in this area, one has testicles and one does not. His sister Xongile is presumably somewhere around here. You sleepy, boy? Have you had a busy night? He also, in terms of identifying Hosana, he also has a nick. I've just remembered. He's got a nick out of his left ear. A little, sort of just a little missing piece at the top there. So that is Hosana. His sister's much tinier than him and has slightly brown eyes, although their eye colors become very, very similar. What a nice bundled up surprise to find whilst driving around. Now, I mentioned earlier that it wouldn't be him calling, and it absolutely wouldn't be. Male leopards only really start to show signs of dominance in that way, and that's what calling like that is, a territorial thing. It's a territorial marker to warn other leopards to stay away. And for male leopards, they only really establish themselves in territories at around about 5 or 6 years old. Of course, quarantine has proved to be the exception of that rule, where at 4 years old, already he's been seen calling, he's been seen marking, and he's been seen mating. And quarantine appears to be the exception to that established rule. No, not established rule, exception to that general principle. So it definitely wasn't Hosana. What's interesting is that we were watching them yesterday, Viam and myself, and Karula was scent marking as she walked along with her 2 cubs. And Xongile immediately went and scent marked on top of where her mom had scent marked, straight away. And then Hosana would come along, sniff a little bit, and then once he sort of pretended to spray the bushes urine by scenting it with his urine, but he didn't actually produce any urine. It was interesting watching that behavior, the mimicry that they show when it comes to watching their mom's behavior. Excuse me. And then imitating it. Sorry, that sneeze took me quite by surprise. And welcome to Nicole, who would like to know, because we've spoken before, we've seen other vehicles, and in fact I'm sure we're going to be joined by another vehicle in the not too distant future. Morning, Nicole. You want to know whether if you come on safari, do you learn about the different characters that we learn about in these live safaris? For example, do they know about the royal family? They don't necessarily call them the royal family, but absolutely they do get to know the individual characters, depending on, of course, on who they see. Because coming out on safari, most guests only really get to experience the joys of these leopards for a few days before it's time for them to leave once again, which is why our live safaris are a wonderful way of following the stories for much, much longer. But we all use the same names for the different cats, so yes, absolutely. Karula is called Karula, Hosana and Xongile are called Hosana and Xongile officially, and that is how they will be introduced to the guests. Or it depends on the guide as well. It depends on who's guiding them. Some guides will ignore the fact that there are names for the individual characters, but they'll still explain them in a way that makes complete sense. So, for example, if they weren't to use the name Hosana, they might say this is a 1-year-old cub. He's the son of the dominant female in this area. He was most likely fathered by the dominant male in this area, and so on. So they still get the background into the behavior of the leopards. They just might not hear the name. But for the most part, most guides will use the same names. Those testiculars. And speaking of potential fathers, of course, Tingana was not too far away from where Hosana is now yesterday. Safari Lauren, you want to know whether or not or how Tingana would react to Karula and cubs now. Most likely, and I mean, the reason I say most likely is only because leopards can be so unpredictable at times. But Tingana has been seen with Karula and the cubs before. He's been seen sharing kills with them. He's been seen occasionally showing a little bit of irritability, snarling at them a little bit, and then the cubs moved off. But because he thinks he is the father, and he probably is the father, there is a very good chance that he will just simply tolerate them. Male leopards, for our new viewers, do not really play a fatherly role in raising their cubs. I'm distracted, I'm sorry. There's a pair of puffback shrikes that are displaying that I want to... They're just there, and we don't always get to put that on camera. Can you see them there, VM? In that knobthorn? Like little balls of cotton wool. And the one is displaying quite fiercely. I think that's the female there. And then if we go just a little... I've lost him now. Just a little bit lower... There was maybe even a little bit further. Sorry, Viam. I can't see him now either. He was all fluffed up like a cotton wool ball. I think that's the female calling to him. Aha, I see him. If you go down... Oh, wait, is he going to fly away? Where is he?
Behind in the middle.
He's behind in the... Is he there? Oh, well done, Viam. Puffback shrike, black-backed puffback, and now they've both stopped displaying just because. There he goes. Well done, VM. Well done. That was incredible. Most impressive. All right. I just wanted to try and show you what they look like when they get their back all puffed up. They really do. They look like they've got cotton wool on their backs. Now just bear with me one moment. I don't think my last call went through, so I just want to try again. Orbs, orbs. Oh, look, Xongile. Surprise! I thought there was another leopard there. Good morning. Look at you sauntering. Yes, he's there. Look, she's going to ambush him. I am stealth. Like a sister jumping on her brother's bed when he's still asleep. Sweet. There you go. So now we've got a brother and a sister reunited. That's what was causing the great alarm from the testiculars. She's cleaning at his ear. Who needs earbuds when you've got a sister? It's a weird thought. She's trying to entice him into play, and he's not really having any of it. Oh, Xongile, I'm tired. I'm growing. Leave me alone. Or not. A bop on the head. The size difference isn't as pronounced anymore. Xongile's grown so much in the last month or so. She no longer looks as tiny as she did. That's what I think. Viam, you agree? Yeah. I don't think there's such a disproportionate level between their growth sizes or their growth rates. Half cuddling, half just lying on top of each other. It's half affectionate. Oh, these two, for our newer viewers who've joined us, these two are regularly left together on their own, as all leopard cubs are. So fortunately, they have each other for company. And when VM and I were discussing earlier, or thinking a little bit about the fact, we're wondering about whether or not a solitary leopard cub or a lone leopard cub has an advantage or a disadvantage. Because, of course, they get more food, because they're the only ones sharing it with mum, but they don't get the play companionship that a pair like these two will have. And I mean, through this playfulness, they're actually learning vital skills and gaining strength that will serve them particularly well in the future. Look at... I mean, she's going in for the kill there. She's got her brother by the throat. Will she release him? Yes, of course she will. Go and clean the ticks off the back of his ears instead. Get up and play with me. Get off. Oh, Hosana, is it tough being a long-suffering brother, huh? This is such a perfect symbol of some sibling relationships happening right here. I love you, but also I want to bite you and kick you in the face. And I will make sure that your ears are spotless. Yeah, get that paw out of my face or I will bite it. It's so funny. Hosana is not interested. He just wants to go back to sleep. Xongile is obviously the morning person in this relationship. Look at his face! Lovely, lovely question coming through from Michael while we watch two cats of completely different personalities. Michael, it's a question that is at the moment being researched. There's a lot of research going into answering. Oh, she's doing a good job of tempting him into it, whether he wants to or not. Michael, you want to know if it's possible for big cat cubs to have different fathers. It is something that is hypothesized is entirely possible because it does happen with cats, with smaller cats, that members of the same litter can be fathered by different fathers. We know that female leopards regularly... Look, she's listening. I think she wants to see if the testiculars are alarm calling at mum. Nope, back to harassing poor Hosana. Michael, it's something that is at the moment, it's one of the reasons why we go around and collect vials of leopard scat to send through as part of the study into paternity, because it is something that's been suggested that is possible, because females mate with multiple male partners, which makes total sense because they want them to believe that they're the father and increase the security of their cubs. I'm not sure who I feel sorry for here. Poor Hosana, who just wanted to sleep. Get off, Xongile, that hurts. Oh, now he's cross. That was too much. A little frustrated grunt there. All right, I'm up. Now what? Why did you wake me up? Mom's not here. There's no breakfast. I had a nice comfortable spot in my pile of dung. Yeah, unimpressed. Ah, and Xongile has taken his spot. You comfortable there? at you two. Trouble on 8 legs. Xongile is definitely not up for a morning nap. He looks so woebegone. I've got his spot, I've got his stick. Tax or Aubrey for Jamie. I don't think anybody can hear me on the Game Drive channel. This is most distressing. Rebecca, please won't you ask Tristan to call this in on the junction of Elephant Skull and Twin Dams. Oh, there we go, there we go. Hold on, never mind. I'm not sure if you copied. I've got Karula's Bantuans here, Elephant Skull Junction, Twin Dams. Cool, perfect. Sorry, Rebecca, never mind. They could hear me, they just forgot to respond. Bop on nose. Hosana's managed to win back his spot. And now Xongile is just being cutesy. And they do keep each other thoroughly entertained. That's what I was talking about before. I wonder which has the better advantage, a single cub or a pair of them. I think three leopard cubs is probably... Oh! Up into the marula tree. Somebody has definitely struggles with attention. She's like a little hyperactive child. Now, of course, the bond between these two is very sibling-like. I'm scared to move, actually. Oh, hopefully it works. I just want to get a better position for Xongile as well. It's okay, mister. It's okay. It's okay. Here we go. As Xongile finds herself a comfortable spot on her marula tree, she loves that pose. Brian, we've watched the very sibling-like relationship between the two of them, but of course hormones are going to start playing a role in the not too distant future. We want to know if sibling leopards will know not to reproduce with each other. The answer, unfortunately, with big cats tends to be no. Inbreeding is a thing that does occur, not relatively regularly, but it does happen. Mothers or sons often mate with their mothers. Sons can mate with their sisters as well. It does occur within big cats. They're not governed by human morality. They're governed by a biological imperative to reproduce. But what nature has done in order to reduce that possibility is the pattern of dispersal with young male leopards. So Xongile will stick around here. And Hosana, let's just see how he's walking. Or not. Back right leg. Did you hurt yourself, boy? No wonder he's so reluctant to play. He's sore. Shame. I'm not too concerned. It's horrible always to see characters that we love hurting in some way. But at the moment, I'm not too worried. We've seen leopards and lions with limps regularly. They have this amazing capacity to heal and to get better. I'm not too concerned about him yet. I think if he had to, he could use that leg if he needed to get out of the way, if he needed to escape. And of course, he's got the care and concern of his mum. So it's not like he has to rely on himself to hunt. I'm not sure where exactly the injury is. It might even just be a thorn that's stuck between two pads of his toes. Yep, you see? He can still bounce around. Your sister's going to jump on you. Attack from above. Or she's going to get distracted by rubbing her cheek on a branch. Sorry, let me just finish very quickly talking about Brian. Dispersal patterns for young males. Wow, got you. Oh, Hosana, I don't think I've ever seen a leopard fall out of as many trees as I've seen you fall out of. It didn't look like a very comfortable fall either. There was a proper audible thump. Yes. He is Tingana's son. Clearly. Oh, shame. He looked at his sister as if to say, stop laughing at me. Show off. Shame, Xongile. He's got a sore leg. Cut him some slack. I'm just going to pretend that I meant to do this, that actually really all I wanted to do was have the top half of my body up on this log. What was that answering? I can't even remember what question I was talking about now. Dispersal patterns, that was it. Yes, the young males move away. Females will stay within close to the territory of their mothers, generally, and the young males will move away and basically go and sow their wild oats, so to speak, a bit further away from the female line. Xongile, you are not helping. That was very Lion King-esque. She just lifted his paw off the tree. Long live the king, Hosana. She's the queen of the castle, so to speak. These two are so sweet. I'm going to get your tail. Except, oh, the last time I tried this didn't work so well. Okay. Oh, no, my leg's a bit sore. Oh, dear. Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to attack you from below then. Shame. Poor boy. I would not be at all surprised if that injury did not come from a sore foot. Right, I'm going to reposition and see if we can get a better view, but while I do that, let's go see how Tristan's doing with our bird contest.
So, yes, finally this morning we've managed to get a decent visual of a bird, and so there's a bit of a debate as to what this actually is. Xongile and I have just been sitting and having a very good look at it. It's got this very barred sort of stomach area and then a darker sort of chest. Now, I've looked through the book and there's only two options that we can get to. One is a juvenile black-chested snake eagle, but it's got yellow on the beak, which the black-chested snake eagle doesn't. And the only other one that I can think of that has the same kind of foot structure with those bare sort of feet and then that yellow on the cere is a European honey buzzard. Now, sometimes these European honey buzzards, they're very, very uncommon. There's not very many of them, but they're quite a difficult bird because they have a lot of variation in the way that they look. And so it could be one of those. Hopefully some of the viewers will get some screenshots and I can have a proper look a little bit later. We are quite far from it, and so it's difficult to get a lot of detail on it. But it's got that very curved beak, which is very honey buzzard-like. So if you have a look in the book here, this is the honey buzzards at the bottom, and you can actually see how varied the honey buzzards are. You can see there's all these different color forms that you get, and so this is the juvenile, which is very, very similar to what we're seeing. You can see that they do get some barring on the chest area, which is what we are seeing with that one. So I think it's possibly a juvenile going into an adult, and so that's why we're starting to see the barring a bit on the chest. But I could be wrong. Like I was saying, with the snake eagle, which is this guy over here, you can see the young bird has no yellow on the beak whatsoever, and the same with the brown snake eagle, and so I highly doubt that it's either of those. So we'll have to just check a little bit later to get a positive ID, but I'm going to try sneak a little bit closer to see. But if it is a honey buzzard, that is a very, very, very special bird. I don't see them very often here, so it would be really, really nice if it is. So like I say, I just want to get a little bit closer just so I can see that chest area a little bit better. It's a little bit tough this morning. We've got kind of this misty weather that's creeped in, and so a lot of the birds are all puffy and puffed out, and so their size is a slightly bigger than normal. So there we go, that's a little bit better. It's still perched there for us. So it's definitely got a very barred chest. You can see there with that brown on the throat area. And like I say, I'm not actually 100% sure. It's sometimes quite difficult with juveniles. There's often a lot of variation within the coloration. So it'll be quite interesting to see what this actually turns out to be. Like I say, hopefully some of you will get a screenshot and you can send them through to us, and then I'll try and send them to, or show Brent and see what he has to say. But I'm actually really not 100% sure as to what that is. But at least we've got to see it. Now we've got a record of it. I don't know if any of the viewers at home can positively ID it for us and let us know. But either way, very, very beautiful little bird and very accommodating. He's sitting there very nicely for us, giving us a really good view. So like I was saying, the weather is not exactly great, so it's actually really good for birding of raptors this morning. When it's these kind of cooler, wetter conditions, there's very few thermals that are around, and so these birds of prey, with their big wings and heavier bodies, really battle to be able to find any thermals, and so they will expend far too much energy in trying to fly around looking for food. And so what they do is they perch on these trees and then they wait until it gets sunny, and the thermals start to rise off the land, and then they'll ride those in the search of food. But that beak should be a very key IDing feature. It is very honey buzzard like. It's got that very recurved beak, so that is the call that I'm going with. It might be wrong, like I say, but let's see if any of you guys can actually positively ID it for me. So James is saying hopefully it is a honey buzzard. There would be a new one for his list. I think, James, there would be quite a few of you that would be with us on that. It's not a common bird in this area. In fact, in my time in the Sabi Sands, this is only the second one that I've seen. So it is not a very common bird at all. But like I say, I'll have to have a proper look when we get back. It unfortunately is flown off now, so when we get back I'll have a proper look through the books and try and go through some photos and see if I can actually find exactly what it is. I'll probably try to give you guys an update this afternoon as to exactly what the ID is. But very, very nice. It's good to see some of the raptors. So while we were kind of coming down this road, the reason why we were here is that we heard some elephants in the bush here. It sounded like quite a few of them, and we haven't managed yet to get a visual of them. Still kind of looking around. There is a very deep drainage line that runs here, and so they might get sidetracked and get stuck in that drainage line. They often, in weather like this, when it's a little bit cooler, they head into those thicker, denser areas and just hide out for the day. But hopefully they're going to pop out for us. They did sound like they were quite far into the block, so it's quite a long way down. So Carl has asked quite an interesting question. He's asking me if animals will eat things even if it's not necessary. So I would imagine he's referring to, let's say, something like a lion or a leopard that will feed on, let's say it has a carcass and will then kill again. I hope that's kind of the gist of the question, but if that is the case, then yes, they do. What they will often do is they take any opportunity that they can. So particularly the predators, because of the fact that they have they're unsure of when the next meal is going to come, because hunting is not always successful. In fact, a lot of the cats are very unsuccessful in a lot of their hunts. So they don't know when the next meal is going to be available, and so they will take any opportunity they can. So even if they've got, let's say, an impala carcass and another impala comes past, they will sometimes even hunt that one just because the opportunity has presented itself. So they do sometimes just eat for the sake of eating, and even though they've got food, they will try and find more food if the opportunity presents itself. The herbivores is slightly different because they've got food all over the place, so they generally only feed when they're hungry. But what you will find is with certain herbivores, and elephants is probably the best example, is that they mix their diet quite a lot. So you'll find that they'll feed off roots, they'll feed off bark, they'll feed off leaves, grass, fruits. So they really have quite a varied diet and quite a wide array of food items that they'll go after. So it's a little bit different with them. Like I say, they don't really have to worry too much about food. It pretty much is everywhere for them, and so they can be quite selective in what they want. So there is another bird for our bird challenge. It's not a very exciting or exotic bird, but there we have a Cape turtle dove. So there's another one for the bird challenge. These are really cool little doves. I really like them. They've got a beautiful call, and normally start calling around sunrise and sunset. And they are quite busy little birds. You can see they shuffle around with their little neck going back and forth, looking for little seeds that have fallen from the grass. Alright, so while we admire our little Cape turtle dove and its busy waddle, we're going to go back to James and see what he's got for us in the tent.